And the days of wrath come. So now, of course, it appears that the mark pushes the envelope and brings about another climactic point. But first, let's go ahead and do a quick recap to see how we got to this point. And like I stated earlier, recaps help to keep us from getting too lost in all the details. So if you've made it to this point, then you already know that the sequence of events are based on the details provided. I can't stress that enough. I know I repeat it a lot. It's extremely important to know that that's where it comes from. It's not me pulling it out of my head or making it up. So we'll start with the abomination of desolation. Okay, so that's our starting point for this recap. First, the abomination of desolation goes up. Second, Israel flees from their suffering and captivity. And it appears that they're on foot, but either way they're fleeing. And it's taking them a while. They're not moving super fast. While they're fleeing, Satan is sent up into the kingdom to stop the deliverer and to put his throne above the Most High. This results clearly in war in heaven. There is an outcry from heaven for silence. The angels are given bowls and trumpets. The 144,000 are sealed before anything is unleashed. Once the 144,000 are sealed, the third angel sounds the first trumpet. Satan and his angels are permanently kicked out of heaven at this point. So basically there's no longer a place for them. They don't have access to go back and forth like they've been doing since their fall. When he hits the ground, which clearly he hit the ground extremely fast because he had to realize he was on earth. So once he realized that he was cast to the earth, he decides to pursue Israel. Remember, Israel was already fleeing, or those who could flee clearly fled. He pursues Israel, who was fleeing to the mountainous wilderness since the abomination of desolation went up, because that was a sign, right? When the abomination of desolation goes up, flee. Those who are in Judea, flee. So definitely those who are in Judea, flee to the mountains. It doesn't take away or mean the other Israelites weren't fleeing. I'm sure that whoever could flee did flee. But those who were in Judea were given specific instructions to go to the mountains. So while they're still in their process of fleeing, he decides to spew water that he was cast into out of his mouth in another failed attempt to sweep Israel away with the bitter floodwaters. He tries to flood them, but the earth opens its mouth to take in all the water. The woman then is given wings to fly into the wilderness, because as I mentioned, clearly the woman is going to slow Israel, their pursuit. They're trying to get out of Dodge and run for their lives. Perhaps they're weak, perhaps they're tired, perhaps they're maimed, injured. Whatever it was, they weren't moving fast enough. That's why the earth had to help them from drowning by taking in the water. But then they were given wings, so clearly that gives them a relief. They're able to get out fast and without stress. That kind of gives them the time to get into the wilderness, where they will be hidden for 3.5 years. After that, the enemy is angry and wages war on the remnant of the seed of the children of Israel and prevails against them. Third angel, the one who's responsible for Satan being kicked out of, or the one who sounded the trumpet that resulted in Satan being, cast to the earth, that angel follows behind the children of Israel, which is the remnant of the seed of Israel, who were being pursued by the dragon, which of course was Satan. Since he couldn't get the one that went to the wilderness, he decided to get the Israelites that were left behind. So this angel follows behind them with a warning against taking the mark of the beast. This is also a foreshadowing of what is to come. It lets the reader know that the warning goes out first and then the mark of the beast is put into place second. This makes it fair and gives them notice ahead of time to make the right decision. During the 3.5-year period, the two witnesses appear on the scene. Also, the beast is operating in full power, waging war against the children of Israel and the nations of the earth. As a result, he is killed by a deadly head wound. He is resurrected from the dead and continues his reign as king. That's why he goes from being the 7th to the 8th. Then the false miracles and lying signs and wonders of the false prophet cause people to worship the image of the beast and the dragon. The mark of the beast comes on the scene and is implemented. So that was just a recap that brings us up to this point where we're at the mark of the beast. So next we have pages 24 through 25. Now, this is where we left off before the recap. We know that other things are also supposed to happen that haven't been detailed in anything we've addressed so far. Therefore, we are left with judgments that appear to come around the time the mark of the beast is being implemented. The second trumpet to sound is the fourth angel, who also has the fourth vial, and this also happens with the breaking of the sixth seal, which is the last seal to be broken. Continuing, we have pages 26 through 33. Here we're dealing with the harvest. Notice it's Yeshua that comes to the earth on the day of Yahuwah. Remember, Scripture tells us he comes in his Father's name, Yah. Yahshua. Yah is salvation. Yeshua means Yah is salvation. That's why his name is so important to learn. I know that, there's still a little bit of gray area, but you're a lot closer to learn his name, Yeshua, meaning Yah is salvation, than sticking with Jesus, which, it's funny. A lot of people who stick with Jesus believe in the 10 Commandments, except that part where it says, do not take Yahuwah's name in vain. When you're throwing around the name Jesus, you're just throwing it around in vanity. Yahshua still points you right back to Yahuwah, and it reminds you that Yah is salvation. But Jesus never tells you that Yah is salvation. That's just a side note. But continuing, what we also have going on is judgment is being executed. So the nations listed on pages 29 through 30 are the nations that Scripture tell us will face judgment in the latter days. I wouldn't say this is an all-inclusive list, as there are many more listed throughout Scripture that I may not have listed on this document. But let's look at the nations that are named in Scripture, even the ones that aren't included. Like, for example, I don't believe I had Saudi Arabia on this list, but it is named in Scripture in the last days, to my understanding. One thing I want you to take note of is notice that not only are nations named in the last days that will receive judgment from Yahuwah, but notice that these nations are in the Middle East. These are Arab nations, which include Edom. Bible prophecy continuously points us to the East in the last days. From the Jews to Israel to Judea to Arab nations to Moab to Ammon to Damascus to Elam, which is modern-day Jordan, Syria, Iran, Iraq, and Egypt, is in Bible prophecy. And like I stated, Saudi isn't listed in this document, but it is in last day prophecy, as well as Palestine. There is also the Red Sea that's mentioned in the last days, the Euphrates River, Babylon, Asia Minor, aka modern-day Turkey. These things should not be dismissed, but instead they should be considered. Personally, I don't think there should be a debate about end-time events happening in the West versus the East. The Bible is extremely clear that the end-time events go down in the East. It's not a question of where the center of attention is focused in the last days. It's clearly in the East. The question is how. The question is why. The question is what happened in the West that recentered the world's attention and power back to the East. We don't base things off of our own understanding and what we know today. We can't always pick up the mentality of our slave masters. Our slave masters, the people who put our ancestors into captivity, and when they released us from slavery, still continued to teach us. And as we understand who we are as a people, what we had to come to the understanding of was that they centered the world around them. They centered Scripture around them. But Scripture does not center around the West. It centers around the East. At best, the only time the West comes in the picture, mostly, is when they're talking about the nations. So in other words, that can include the Arab nations, but it does not exclude other nations, which would then include the West. We just have to be careful not to adopt the mentality of the people who put us in captivity in the first place. Rather, we have to see the world through the eyes of Scripture. And instead, we need to believe Scripture rather than our captorers who gave us the mentality in the first place. If Scripture says that this will happen, know that it will happen. And again, before anybody becomes angry at me, I did not write these verses. I did not put these nations and these names in the verse in the Bible. I'm simply presenting the information. This is not personal against anybody. And so just continuing. The questions that we ask ourselves is, how did it go from this to that? That's what we should ask ourselves. That's what gets you going in the right direction and looking in the right areas. Remember, it's by faith and not by sight. Lean not to your own understandings, but in all your ways acknowledge Him and He will direct your paths. I know that it's hard sometimes for some of us to imagine that the world does not center around the Western Hemisphere. The Bible does not center around the Western Hemisphere. There's too much evidence that determines otherwise. But rather than us trying to make sense of it and make it fit the Western theory, we must accept the names and the Eastern locations that it gives us and have faith that if Scripture says it will be, it will be. So let it be written, so let it be done. That doesn't mean that nations who abuse the children of Israel are escaping judgment. It just means that it appears that Yeshua has a score to settle in the East. Everything started in the East and it finishes in the East. As we continue, as I mentioned earlier, there were some slight challenges. So here's a challenge where it's difficult to give an exact timeline between Yeshua making his visitations and when the angels sound their trumpets. So instead, on pages 26 through 33, it outlines a sequence of events rather than the order that the trumpets are blown. Now, okay, I'll explain what I mean by that. It gives the order, but not exactly. You'll know where things get a little different. So it's the third angel, as stated, that does sound the first trumpet. So that's not a question. And when that happens, Satan is cast to the earth, and him being cast to the earth sets off a sequence of events. Next, the fourth angel sounds a second trumpet. This is the appearance of Yeshua. But so far, we only have 2 trumpets that have sounded. That leaves us with 5 more trumpets that must be blown. The order of the last 3 trumpets is easy to identify because the details that are provided in the text. The text points out there are 3 woes, and these 3 woes are associated with the last 3 trumpets. Revelation 8:13 says, "And I beheld and heard an angel flying through the midst of heaven, saying with a loud voice, Woe, 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 to the inhabitants of the earth, by reason of the other voices of the trumpet of the 3 angels which are yet to sound." So when the 5th angel sounds, and we're told in Revelation 8 verse 12, the first woe has passed and 2 more woes come hereafter. The 6th angel sounds, and we see there is a battle. They lose the battle. Then we see the beast makes war with the 2 witnesses and kills them. This makes the 2nd woe and a warning that the 3rd woe will come quickly. The 7th angel has to be the last to sound because Scripture tells us that the dead are risen at the last trumpet. The 7th angel blows his trumpet and we see voices. The 7th angel pours out his vial and we see lightnings, we see voices, and thundering. We are also told in Revelation chapter 15, 7 through 8, that no one could enter the temple until the 7 plagues of the 7 angels are complete. After the 7th angel pours out, Revelation 16:17 tells us a great voice from the temple says, "It is done." These are markers that identify the 7th angel as being the last angel to sound. And therefore, the 3rd woe is also associated with the 7th angel. And the 7th angel is the last trumpet to sound, like I stated. By now, we have accounted for 5 of the 7 trumpets. So let's go ahead and do a clean recap. First, the 3rd angel cast down Satan and his demons to earth. Second was the 4th angel, which marks the appearance of Yeshua. The last 3 trumpets marks 3 woes. The 5th trumpet is the 1st woe. The 6th trumpet is the 2nd woe. The 7th trumpet is the 3rd woe. This still leaves us with 2 trumpets that are unaccounted for. And this is what I was referring to as far as the challenge. So the 2nd and 1st angel, these were the 2 that I found to be difficult and most challenging to place. This is because I was unable to find details that would determine the chronological order. Therefore, they were placed in the sequence that they appear in the document based on the details that were provided for the other angels. What was clear was that the last 3 trumpets occurred in a certain sequence. Therefore, Angel 1 and Angel 2 had to sound their trumpets before the last 3. So that's clear. And because of the details provided concerning Angels 3 and 4, Angel 1 and Angel 2 had to sound after the 3rd and 4th. This places them in the middle. It appears they sounded off in the following order: Angel 3, Angel 4, then 1 and 2, which is sandwiched in the middle, and then Angel 5, 6, and 7. And there was still a problem with not having enough details to determine who sounded first. Was it the 1st angel or the 2nd angel, or did they both sound at the same time? Therefore, since there was nothing to say otherwise, they were placed in chronological order, with the 1st angel sounding first and then the 2nd angel sounding second. After placing the 1st and 2nd angel, Revelation 8:13 tells us that another angel flying around says, "There are 3 woes and 3 angels have yet to sound." This affirms and lets us know that 4 angels sounded previously, and that there are 3 more woes that are associated with the last 3 angels. So that was just confirmation and affirming that 4 angels had to sound, which leaves you with 3 woes and 3 angels that need to sound. So now that we've addressed the order of the angels, let's look at some of the details about the last 3 angels and their woes. The 5th angel is the 1st woe. Therefore, as we've discussed, it has to be among the last 3 to sound. But notice that the details of the 5th angel affirm a detail mentioned with the 3rd angel. And remember, the 3rd angel sounded first. And that detail was the falling star. The falling star, which is Satan, makes you want to pair the 5th and 3rd angel together, but you can't because of the many other details provided. The 3rd angel casts Satan to earth. There is a scripted chain of events that must happen after the 3rd angel does this. He has to be cast to the earth. He has to make the waters bitter. He has to spew water at the woman. He has to pursue the woman, so on and so forth. All of these and more are detailed to happen after Satan is cast to the earth and realizes he hit the earth. In other words, his being cast to the earth sets off a chain of events that must happen. What makes the difference is that we are told the 3rd angel sounds and a star falls from heaven, which is Satan. But the 5th angel sounds and is given the key to the bottomless pit, which we know is for Satan. It's at the fifth trumpet that the prophet John, or I believe John, the Hebraic name is Yehochanan, tells us he sees a star fall from heaven. At that point, I can go no further than to accept what Scripture has told me. It tells me that he sees a star fall from heaven, and he tells us this was at the sounding of the fifth trumpet. Now, was this detail provided to make us aware that the star that fell is Satan, who will be tied up by the fifth angel, who was also given the key to the bottomless pit? I honestly don't have all the answers, and I definitely don't have the answer to that. I can only use the details provided. Based on the other details provided, the third angel sounds first, and the fifth angel sounds fifth, and is among the last three angels to sound. Also, the fifth angel pours out a vial that puts the beast kingdom in darkness and afflicts them with sores and pain. Now, the sixth angel sounds, and 4 angels are loosed from the Euphrates River. That's in the east. And it appears there are an army of demons with them of 200,000, which is 200 million. And their job is to afflict the wicked. This affirms Isaiah 45:7. And Proverbs 16, verse 4. So according to Revelation 9, verses 13 through 21, these evil beings were prepared for an hour and a day and a month and a year. Appears to be the evil that was created for the day of evil, to afflict the wicked. Continuing with addressing the sixth angel. The sixth angel pours out his vial and dried up the Euphrates River to prepare the way of the kings of the east. The kings of the east. Now the beast, the false prophet, and the dragon released 3 unclean spirits like frogs to go out to the kings of the earth and the whole world for battle, the battle of Armageddon.